lot of people are traveling this time of year, and when you see close calls like this and plane crashes, people start to worry, right?
But welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're breaking down just why it seems like airplanes are, breaking down.
There's been another fatal plane crash, this one in Philadelphia, even as investigators piece together evidence from Wednesday's deadly midair collision in Washington, D.C.
We have more on the breaking news here at 7. We are learning more about the plane that caught on fire at Denver International Airport. The airport confirming that an American Airlines flight caught fire at gate C38. You can see the smoke pouring out of that area here in this video.
To paraphrase the Family Guy theme song, it seems today like all you see is plane crashes, and plane crashes on TV. Since early 2024, and particularly in the early months of 2025, it's felt like every other week brings about a new story of some aviation malfunction, defect, or otherwise frightening in-air experience. You'll likely have heard of Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, or maybe a little less formally, that flight where a freaking door blew off after takeoff.
You can hear the wind as those passengers were coming back in after that pilot declared an emergency landing. Clearly some issue where that portion of the wing, or of the side of the aircraft rather, blew out. Now this is a 737 MAX 9. It's an aircraft that was just put into service in November of this year. Now,
on January 5th, 2024, an unassuming Alaska Airlines flight departed from Portland, Oregon on its way to Ontario, California at 5:06 p.m. 6.5 minutes later, a poorly installed door plug separated from the plane's airframe, resulting in an uncontrolled decompression. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured during the incident, and the flight safely returned to Portland International Airport just 20 minutes after it had taken to the skies. The accident created a media firestorm, and a subsequent investigation revealed that Boeing, manufacturer of the offending machine, had taken a lax approach to quality control procedures. Flight 1282 severely damaged Boeing's credibility and stoked mass panic about the safety of flying.
The preliminary NTSB report found the plane's fuselage was delivered to Boeing with defective rivets, which required removal of the door panel to fix. This September photo of the plane during final assembly shows that door panel in place, but at least 3 of the bolts missing.
News about Boeing's failure to protect its customers made headlines throughout the rest of 2024, as further research into Flight 1282 revealed an unfortunate pattern of cutting corners at the American aerospace manufacturer. Boeing machinists later went on strike from September to November, costing the corporation nearly $10 billion before a new contract was agreed to. So, yeah, a bad year to be Boeing.
They hear safety is our number one priority. But what they see is that that's only true as long as your production milestones are met. And at that point, it's push it out the door as fast as you can.
Multiple lawmakers said they want Boeing to once again be an American success story. And while they called for change, there are no specifics coming from Congress, at least in this moment, to try to force that change.
That's especially when you factor in that 2024 was the deadliest year for flying since 2018, with disasters like those seen in South Korea, Germany, and Thailand adding to growing public wariness around commercial aviation. As if those incredibly frightening incidents weren't bad enough, a slew of in-air tragedies in the first quarter of 2025 only served to scare people even more and caused the general public to wonder, is flying safe anymore?
The new Transportation Secretary today announced he is permanently limiting helicopter flights around Washington, D.C., and the FAA will roll out artificial intelligence to identify close-call trends nationwide.
Over the course of just a few days in January, the United States experienced some of its most headline-making aviation accidents ever. On January 29th, American Airlines Flight 5342 collided with a U.S. Army Sikorsky UH-50 Black Hawk helicopter in midair over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. Tragically, everyone involved in the crash died. That's all 64 passengers and the 3 crew members of the helicopter.
We're going to make sure we've learned from this air disaster, and we're going to pay it forward so there's not other families that have to go through the pain and anguish of losing a loved one.
It comes as the NTSB today reported a staggering number of close calls at Reagan National, with choppers flying down the Potomac River right off runway 33.
The deadliest American air disaster in almost 25 years. President Donald Trump blamed the collision on the diversity, equity, and inclusion policies set by the Federal Aviation Agency. The president's remarks were widely condemned and were criticized for their inaccuracy. This was especially pronounced once it became clear that, according to the National Transportation Safety Board, the, quote, helicopter crew may have had bad information on the altitude from their altimeter, as the pilots had differing altitudes in the seconds before the crash.
New information revealing the Route 4 corridor highlighted in yellow allowed helicopters to get far too close to the flight landing path marked by the dotted line.
How did the FAA not know? How did they not study the data to say, hey, this is a hot spot, we're having near misses, and if we don't change our way, we're going to lose lives?
Weeks later, Trump further politicized the incident by firing hundreds of FAA employees, a move harshly criticized by aerospace industry insiders. One such insider, head of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists Union, David Spiro, speculated that the firings, quote, will increase the workload and place new responsibilities on a workforce that is already stretched thin.
I do think the American public does need to be concerned about, not only my firing, but also the firing of so many public safety, national security professionals at the FAA and, within the Department of Transportation, but, writ large also throughout the federal government.
Of course, as we stated a little earlier, American Airlines Flight 5342 wasn't the last deadly flight of January 2025. 2 days later, on January 31st, MedJet's Flight 56 crashed in Philadelphia, killing all 7 people on board, as well as 1 other person on the ground, in addition to 24 additional injuries.
Now at 11, new details about that deadly medical jet crash in northeast Philadelphia. Investigators are combing through the burned cars and damaged homes for clues while neighbors try to fully process exactly what happened last night. The latest on the investigation into what caused that aircraft to go down just moments after takeoff.
Air travelers faced yet another scary headline a few weeks later. On February 17th, Delta Connection Flight 4819, arriving in Toronto from Minneapolis, crashed and overturned on the runway. Miraculously, no one was killed, although 21 people reported injuries, but all were discharged from hospitals in just a few days. While consumer confidence in air travel remains at a respectable level, there are signs that people are becoming increasingly wary of planes. According to an Associated Press poll, approximately 6 in 10 people surveyed, quote, say traveling by plane, car, or foot is very or somewhat safe. The poll also found that the public has little confidence in the federal government to maintain air safety.
There's not just one thing that went wrong. There may be one thing that stands out above all others, but there's always going to be a number of things that aligned up that allowed this accident to occur.
So all of this begs the question, are planes crashing more often? While there have, of course, been a number of high-profile incidents over the course of the past year or so, that doesn't necessarily mean that airplanes are altogether any less safe than they have been in the past. The BBC, analyzing U.S. and worldwide trends in aviation data, quote, found that over the past 2 decades, there has been a general downward trend in air accidents.
To be an air traffic controller is a rigorous, the hiring, screening, and then the school. They wash out about 30% of those who enter. The 70%, it's about a 2-year program before they're actually going to control aircraft. And to even suggest that there's anything but the best and brightest out there, it's a tough job. They do it well.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. According to the National Transportation Safety Board, quote, NTSB data shows a general fall in air accidents in the U.S. from 2005 to 2024, despite a significant increase in the overall number of flights over this period. That's in addition to data from the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, a UN body that backed up evidence of such a downward trend, even when considering their broad definition of what constitutes an air accident. Said Sir David Spiegelhalter, Emeritus Professor of Statistics at the University of Cambridge, quote, random events do not occur evenly. They tend to cluster. So unfortunately, we can expect aircraft accidents to appear to be connected even when they are not.
Let's not lose sight of the fact that it's been 12 years. We move, 90 million people a year without incident. We kill 38,000 people a year on the highways, and we've killed no one in an airplane. So it's a remarkably safe system. Nevertheless, it's a tragedy, and I feel it was horrible when you see what happened.
Similarly, The Telegraph's Greg Dickinson has spoken to how these statistics can seem simple and straightforward, but are actually highly nuanced and complex. Said Dickinson, quote, it is worth considering that accidents have always occurred at 35,000 feet, but we have greater awareness of these with the proliferation of smartphones and social media. If every incident, however minor, is captured on video and posted online, the upshot is a skewed sense sense of flying becomes less safe, but the opposite is in fact true. Yes, 2024 was a deadly and tragic year for aviation, but Dickinson is quick to point out that airplanes have actually never been safer and more accident-free. John Grant, an employee at the flight database and statistics company OAG, is quoted as saying, quote, "In 2024, there were over 37 million scheduled flights operated by airlines around the world, and the number of major incidents could be counted on two hands." As such, it seems that given the available information, human error is largely to blame for the painful aviation debacles we've talked about today.
Obviously, these incidents are, they garner a lot of attention, and they should, especially from the industry. We need to investigate all of them and learn from them. But as the flying public, I think it's really important to understand what goes on behind the scenes that you don't really see as a flying passenger.
In fact, according to pilot Brian Smith, quote, "So improved has been technology that human factors like pilot error have overtaken mechanical or system failure as the main cause of accidents." So you can take a sigh of relief and make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright position.
There is an enormous amount of effort, a very variable alphabet soup of programs that ensure your safety, that collect information on every kind of hazard and risk, that close the loop on that and make sure that those are mitigated.
Where will you take your next flight to? Be sure to let us know in the comments below.